Hello everyone, and welcome back to our channel. Have you ever stopped to think about what fuels our world? I don't just mean your car or the plane you took on your last vacation. I mean everything. The plastics in your phone, the fertilizers for your food, the energy that powers our cities. So much of it traces back to one single substance, oil. This black, viscous liquid has shaped our modern civilization more than almost anything else. But what if it was never discovered? What if humanity never tapped into this immense underground reserve of ancient energy? Imagine waking up in a world without oil. How would you get to work? What would your clothes be made of? What would our world even look like? It's a question that sends ripples through every aspect of our lives. The 20th century, often called the oil century, would have unfolded in a dramatically different way. The Great Wars, the rise and fall of empires, the very map of the world we know today, all of it is deeply intertwined with the quest for and control of petroleum. Without oil, the geopolitical chessboard would have been completely redrawn. Nations that rose to prominence on the back of their oil wealth might have remained quiet backwaters, while others, perhaps rich in coal or with advanced renewable technology, could have become the new superpowers. The political landscape would be almost unrecognizable. The strategic importance of the Middle East, for example, would be vastly diminished. The intense conflicts and alliances forged over access to oil fields would simply not exist. Instead, global power might have remained concentrated in the hands of the great coal-powered empires of the 19th century, like Great Britain. Or perhaps, nations with vast forests for wood and charcoal, or powerful rivers for hydroelectricity, would have become the new centers of influence. International relations would be governed by access to different resources. Would we have seen a world with more localized, self-sufficient economies, or would the competition for other energy sources, like coal or uranium, have become just as fierce and destructive? The concept of a globalized economy, reliant on cheap and rapid transportation, would have developed much, much slower, if at all. The political ideologies that dominated the 20th century, all of which were built on the promise of industrial growth and mass consumption, would have had to adapt to a world with far stricter energy limits. It's a fascinating thought experiment. Technologically, our progress would have taken a completely different path. The internal combustion engine, the very heart of the automotive and aviation industries, might have been a short-lived curiosity, a novel invention with no practical fuel source. Our cities wouldn't be sprawling metropolises connected by vast networks of highways. Instead, they might be more compact, densely populated centers built around rail lines and canals, powered by steam and electricity. The age of the automobile would never have dawned. Think about that. No traffic jams, no suburban sprawl, but also no road trips or the personal freedom a car represents. Innovation would have been forced down a different route. Without oil-derived plastics, what would we use? Perhaps we would have seen incredible advancements in agitology, ceramics, and the use of natural materials like wood, rubber, and glass. The chemical industry, so dependent on petrochemicals, would be a shadow of its current self. This would affect everything from pharmaceuticals to fertilizers, potentially limiting our ability to produce food on a mass scale and fight diseases. But on the other hand, without the easy solution of oil, human ingenuity might have been pushed towards renewable energy sources much earlier. Perhaps the late 19th century boom in electric vehicles would have continued, leading to highly efficient battery technologies by the mid-20th century. Maybe solar, wind, and geothermal power would be the bedrock of our energy grid, developed out of sheer necessity. We might be a century ahead in green technology, living in a world that never had to confront the specter of climate change. Our daily lives and culture would be profoundly altered. The rhythm of life would be slower, more local. The idea of flying across the continent for a weekend trip would be science fiction. Communities would be more tight-knit, as long-distance travel would be a luxury reserved for the very few. Fashion would be different, without synthetic fibers like polyester and nylon. Our clothes would be made of wool, cotton, and linen, making them more expensive and long-lasting. The concept of fast fashion wouldn't exist. The American dream of a house in the suburbs with 2 cars in the garage would be replaced by a different aspiration, perhaps centered on a well-appointed apartment in a walkable, train-connected city. The arts and media would reflect this reality. The car chases in movies, the rock and roll road trip anthems, the entire culture built around the freedom of the open road, none of it would have materialized. Our collective imagination would be filled with different symbols of freedom and progress. Would we be more connected to our local environment and seasons? Without the mass production enabled by oil, consumer culture itself would be fundamentally different. We'd likely own fewer things, but those things would be built to last, repaired, and passed down through generations. It would be a world of craftsmanship over mass production, a world that is, in many ways, quieter and slower. Looking at the big picture, a world without oil would be a world of immense trade-offs. We would have avoided many of the devastating environmental consequences of the fossil fuel era. Our air would be cleaner, our oceans less polluted, and the looming threat of climate change would not be a reality. The planet's ecosystems would be immeasurably healthier. However, we would also be a less technologically advanced and globally connected species. The Green Revolution, which fed billions, was heavily dependent on oil-based fertilizers and machinery. Without it, global population might be a fraction of what it is today, capped by our ability to produce food. Medical advancements, from plastic syringes to life-saving drugs, would have been hampered. The world would be more fragmented, with distinct and isolated cultures, but perhaps this would also mean less global conflict. So, as we stand at a crossroads today, looking to move beyond oil, it's worth reflecting on the world it created. A world of incredible speed, connection, and abundance, but also one of environmental peril and conflict. The alternate history of a world without oil isn't a simple utopia or dystopia. It's a complex tapestry of gains and losses. It forces us to ask ourselves, what do we truly value? What are we willing to trade for progress? And as we develop the energy sources of the future, what kind of world do we want to build? Thanks so much for joining me on this thought experiment. What do you think would be the biggest difference in a world without oil? Let me know your ideas down in the comments. I'd love to read them. If you enjoyed this journey into an alternate history, please give this video a like. And don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next exploration. See you in the next video.